So when I'm not now looking at the culture then and now, like what do you see the differences? Like what do you see like what's the contrast?
Culture on the West Coast?
Well, yeah, culture on the West Coast, culture here, 5% culture, gang culture. You know what I'm saying? And you know, 85 culture here, like, you know, like just culture overall as, you know, original people.
All right, let me say this. My first time ever in Now Why, in 1990, I noticed immediately how here there's more, the culture here, people have a tendency more or less to lean towards righteousness and knowledge of self.
On this side.
On this side.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It has, because this knowledge even came to the streets and took over the gang culture, God, here. The guards came and took over the gang culture in this city, God.
And now why?
Took over the gang culture.
Right.
The gang members became righteous. Yeah, they became 5%ers.
Yeah.
So that became the culture here. That replaced the gang culture at that time. Where in Cali, the gang culture was never replaced, God. It was never replaced. What it did, it got stronger.
Over the years.
It got stronger. And I'm gonna tell you why it got stronger, because it got more ignorant, God. That gave it more power. The level of ignorance that it's on right now is times 10 or what it was. It's 10 times stronger than what it was when I was growing up.
See, that's interesting because, you know, like, yeah, you're right that guards did take over the culture, or took over, like, you know, gang culture here.
Because a lot of the gang members.
But then there was a reverse of that too. You know what I'm saying? Because there was a lot of brothers that came from the West Coast, that gang culture started coming over here. And brothers who were 5%ers started becoming more, I guess, more to catch more rep.
And that happened while I was in the feds. And I started meeting a lot, being that I was on the on the East Coast in the feds. I would meet a lot of Bloods and Crips from New York, from Now Why. But a lot of these brothers had knowledge of self at one time.
Right.
And that threw me for a loop, God, because remember, I left the streets in 95. So when I left, before I left, I was going back and forth Cali, New York, from 90 to 95. I'd never seen no Bloods in New York. I would come to Now Why to get away from that shit. I'd come to Now Why to get away from the gang culture, God. The Bloods and the Crips.
So what did you think when you...
So now, I'm gonna tell you guys, like, I'm meeting them in the feds. I'm meeting dudes from Brooklyn, from Queens, saying that they Bloods. They're naming sets from LA, God. I'm
How?
And that's what I'm saying. How are you A-Tray when A-Tray is over off of Western and in between Western and Normandy? I know exactly where that hood is at.
Right.
You can't tell me you from Queen Street Bloods, when Queen Street is in Inglewood. I used to play football against the dudes that was part of Queen Street. I lived on Line. We used to play football. You can't tell me that. So that was throwing me for a loop, God. I'm like, how are you from Queens, but you telling me you from A-Tray Gangster? You an A-Tray Crip. Or you Inglewood family. Like, hold up. You talking to somebody from Inglewood. How you Inglewood family and you from Queens? Or you from Brooklyn? And it's like...
And what was the explanation?
Peace, thank you. And they like, oh, well, I got put on by such and such. This dude came from the West Coast, and then I started to get a little history of how the Bloods came to the East Coast, and they say it started in the systems. This is what up north. This is what they tell me, because a lot of people was coming from the up north jails in New York to the feds. So when they was coming into the fed system, that's how I started getting the stories of how the Bloods were starting in the institutions in the state of New York. So that threw me for a loop, God. I'm like, hold up. I'm from Cali. To hear that spoken on the West Coast was crazy to me. It just let me know that the devil stay busy. The devil continues daily to teach, dog.
Right. So that's why we gotta continue daily. Yeah.
Once I seen that, and I'm still in the system at the time. I'm fresh in the federal system. I wasn't even in there understanding years before I started meeting these brothers.
Wow.
They saying they gang banging. And they telling me, oh yeah, well I used to be rights. I used to have knowledge of self.
If Mecca did this.